The job market sucks right now. A lot of people have been laid off, they're looking for jobs. So, one thing I would love to get your thoughts on is how AI technology is impacting whether it's recruitment, finding jobs. What are some of the things that you've seen?
Yeah. Recently, I started this community called Back to Work Network on LinkedIn. The idea is to rally people, whether job seekers, coaches, mentors, recruiters, to do something good for society and the community, basically trying to get people back to work, hence the name. There's a lot of conversations with job seekers and recruiters.
Mhm.
I'll touch more on the recruiter side because on LinkedIn every day we will hear or see posts of people that are affected that would rent or share their experience. We have plenty of that. The other side we rarely hear is the recruiter side. I think everyone's quite familiar with ATS, applicant tracking system. So it's a tool that recruiters would use to basically sieve out resumes. So for example, if the company's at a situation whereby they are unable to hire foreigners, for example, then they will set on the algorithm say, I can only hire Singaporean or permanent residents. It's just the way it is. I don't have enough quotas for that, or I'm hiring for a role that requires the candidate to speak a certain language, like Japanese, because it's focusing on working with Japanese market, for example. So that's crucial. So they'll set all factors and fields, and the system will then go into work, look at the resumes, receive and sieve out those that just fit the profile. And as time progresses, the system got smarter, and then the recruiters can add in more fields and more restrictions, for example, for CVs to get passed, which is called, everyone's familiar with keywords. Once and ever so often, people would talk about you need to customize your CV to make sure that you have the right keywords to get past the ATS. And what's happening now is the recruiters are getting more CVs coming through the gate. And what was once a tool for them to be more efficient with what they're doing, it's now not working because, like I said, the recruiters are building their fortress, and job seekers are also arming themselves with tools. I come from a background whereby I've experienced both as a recruiter. I've been a hiring managers. I've been hiring manager before. I've been looking for jobs before. And over the past 20 over years, I've seen that shift. I've seen human resources becoming a little bit more evolved and expanded. The roles are a little bit more defined. Back in the early 2000s, there was just like one person doing like multiple tasks. Now there's dedicated, right? So there's your talent acquisition, and there's talent management, human resource, and it's a little bit more advanced now. And of course, the team or the department for an average company has also increased. I remember when I used to work for a multinational agency, and the human resource team was like barely 10, and it supports like a staff strength of over 300 in Singapore. Now that's a small number for a company that size. And with tools and everything, it's supposed to increase the efficiency. However, I'm also hearing a lot of disgruntled job applicants that whether they don't get shortlisted, or throughout the whole process, there's a lot of practice by certain companies that doesn't sit very well with job candidates. So every day, literally every day, maybe because of the people I talk to and the conversations that I shared on LinkedIn, the LinkedIn algorithm is feeding me stories and posts of that nature. And everyone's saying it's the hiring process broken with in this day and age with all the tools. And how can we fix this? Does it mean that perhaps going back to taking a step back, half a step maybe, back to what it used to be, and having recruiters personally read through those CVs that's gotten past the ATS and read a little bit beyond just keywords, and having a lot more calls, have conversations. I believe in the value of that, of being human in human resources. I think that's important. I think that it just improves the whole hiring process, whether the candidate gets the job or not. And the world's a very small place. You never know where the candidate's going to end up beyond this. So it's always good to have that rightful experience that the candidate has deserved for putting in the application. It's I I don't know if that's the right solution, but I do feel that the solution is somewhere there. I understand the virtue and the benefit of having the system to filter off. There are just some attributes that's needed for certain jobs and some companies like I mentioned, the right to work in the company. Because as we all know, it's getting tougher these days for foreigners to land a job in Singapore. It's just getting stricter. And it's not just in Singapore, I think across the world, more and more countries are starting to go, okay, I'm just gonna take care of my people first. And I need to bring the numbers down for unemployment in my country before I start to open up for foreign talents. So it's happening everywhere. It's no right or wrong, it's just what it is. So those functions, I think making sure that if your company is in the position that you are unable to hire foreigner, putting that in, I think that's important. It helps. The other keywords that you're gonna put in, honestly, that keyword game is out the window because yeah, job seekers are just like hacking the system now. No, I don't know. I don't like the situation that's happening. I don't like it. I Neither do I have a solution, but I think I have a vague idea of what the solution could be. And I think it lies with a hybrid version of AI and human. And I've been
Yeah.
talking about a lot this.
Absolutely. I think like you said, HR, human resources has to have the human element. Otherwise, once again, doesn't really make sense. But I guess
Yeah.
for many of them, many companies doesn't matter where it's HR, marketing, sales are trying to drive efficiencies. And that's where I guess AI comes into play when they're getting a massive influx of job candidates coming in. So I'm curious, are there any examples you've seen either on the recruitment side or the job seeker side of how AI has maybe helped with some of that efficiency without completely removing the human element, or maybe they're supplementing that? Would love to hear any examples, tools, case studies you've come across.
Maybe I just use mine. I just wanna be mindful of people that share their stories. I'll just pretty much share mine. So recently, I'm also on the search for the dream job and exploring the opportunities. So I've leveraged on AI tools like ChatGPT to make sure that my CV looks good enough, clean up the language, and also understanding whether I'm a good fit for the role. So that's quite easy these days. Just load up the job description and then you submit your CV and then it's able to tell you that, I think you're a good fit and how your CV can look a little bit better for that. So I've done that. I've also taken something a little bit different route, like the usual recommendation from people in the human resources. You need to make sure your CV falls into one page,
Hmm.
two at max, keep it simple, don't be long-winded. And I've seen examples of those CVs. And I've spent all my life in the creative industry and telling me that a document to talk about me is going to fit into one Word document with minimum, like just the basic, stripped down to the basic, doesn't sit very well with me. And I'm also one that doesn't believe in sending a portrait document where the recipient's going to see it in landscape. So I took the learnings from AI. Okay, fine. Some words or some phrases need to be phrased in certain way to get through the ATS. I think that's fine. But I'm not going to restrict myself to a two-page Word document to represent me. So I went to Keynote and started doing my CV in Keynote. And maybe it's a second nature when I start working on Keynote and the topics myself. Yeah, just I can put things in, I can put things that's not part of my professional career to define who I am. And I think it's a 14 slide keynote presentation, my CV now. So I went into A/B testing. So I tested it. I applied for jobs, similar roles, similar size companies. And what I realized is the keynote version tend to get more hit and the speed of people responding is relatively fast. Almost like the next day, I'll get, oh, I would love to talk to you. And after talking to those who responded, I realized they tend to be smaller organizations that may not have the massive tools And it's obviously some of the roles it didn't work out. Just realized that it's not the right fit for me and not the right fit for the company as well. But I think the conversation that we had on the earlier on start is we established what the role required and whether I'm willing to do that for a living. And that I feel saves a lot of time. And having honest conversations with the candidate is important. I think addressing the role requirement and what he or she wants to do for a living is important as well. So in terms of, I think the AI tool, circling back, ChatGPT, for example, definitely helps in terms of how you could craft your CV better in terms of messaging, how you want to describe yourself. And Asians tend to be a little bit more, there's this, because of the way that we're being brought up. So we're not that big on selling ourselves. So having the AI tool is almost like talking to Jarvis from Iron Man. Having a tool that's able to bring up more positively of the candidate to get past certain gatekeeping. But you do need to have a document that represent your flair, who you are outside of your job. I think it's important, and especially for those who are looking at career switches. So if they want to switch from, for example, in engineering and marketing, on paper, if your regular CV is gonna, this is what I've done, engineering for 10 years, it's near impossible and it's unfair for the candidate to expect the recruiter, I should give this person a try. I should have a conversation with this person because you're showing no signs of evidence that you are capable of doing it. So going back to the one-page document, there's no space physically for you to say things like that. But when you put it in a different format, whatever works, for me, it could be something else that's able to include certain passion. It could be a passion project. It could be something about what they do on the side that has relevance, or as simple as a story behind why the mid-career switch. Why do you want to do marketing? Why do you think you're good at it? So that's supposed to be the role of the cover letter. And I'm not so sure if people still read cover letters these days. I'm hearing like two sides. Some say it doesn't really matter. But whatever you send over, I think it should contain information about you that goes beyond your job. I think that's important. So I think that's one part that could help. And I do urge the recruiters to also spend more time to talk to more. It's not going to be easy because there's going to
Mm.
be a lot because this is the season of layoffs. But many recruiters that have been in the industry for a long time that I spoke to, the reason why they started in the first place, why they wanted to move into recruitment is it's that, right? It's about placing the right people in the right role. So that motivation. So sometimes over years, people lose track and they like, okay. But I think go back to that core of why you started this career, and it's gonna take more time. You have to talk to more people. And over time, I think it gets better. And when you get the hang of like properly reading through CVs and deciding whether I should talk to this person or not, I think that the best CV for candidates is still that human element, that recruiter who had conversations with the hiring managers who understand the culture of the company. They will be going, this is someone that's not going to work out. This is someone that potentially could be good for the company. So yeah, so I don't see AI filling that role anytime soon. That emotional bit, that human bit, they can try to mimic, but it still boils down to algorithm. And it will be sad to say that the company's hiring process can be defined by algorithms. I just don't see that being a good sign. Yeah.
Yeah, so I spoke with a recruiter recently and I asked him if AI has impacted his role so much at all. And he said, not so much, to be honest. He said, hopefully he looks for the day where it does impact in a positive manner. In
Mm.
his opinion, he said it hasn't really made a huge impact yet. Maybe once again, he's still focusing on the human elements. But I think going back to what you're saying about the A/B testing, this is something I
Yeah.
always encourage for my students, as well as when I first got my job here in Singapore. So how I got it is, and this is when I got the interview, but I think it still goes back to doing things a little bit different, is I asked the hiring manager, why did you hire me? Because once again, I didn't have the industry experience. I didn't have the geographic experience. Why me? So they said you did something very different than everybody else. Everyone came in and they did the usual spiel about
Mm,
themselves, but you came in and I think my wife's iPad and I had a deck and I was basically taking you through a presentation
mm,
of stuff I've worked on, different accomplishments, things like that, some ideas I had for campaigns. And I think they really appreciated that visual element and that showmanship because I feel like they said that was something that was missing in the organization in that department. Once again, it wasn't rocket science. Looking
yeah.
back, it was not the most robust or the most impressive of decks or anything like
But
that.
it
But it
worked.
works. I think that's where I'd like to encourage people is to try things a little bit outside the box and A/B test it. Sometimes it
Mm,
works, sometimes it fails miserably, but at least once again, you're mixing things up because I look at a lot of different CVs from my students, from executives, and most of them are the same. They look the
mm.
same, they have the same font, they have the same wording, so it's almost like a carbon copy.
That's right. Exactly. It's like I've seen like people sharing, oh, this is the best CV ever. I saw four or five, they all look the same. And it's tough. Like from the recruiter's perspective, is how am I gonna pick someone up when they all look the same? And the pressure they get from the hiring manager. Why am I looking at these people? So you're absolutely right. I think be creative in pushing yourself. So I've recently also shared on LinkedIn. It's just the idea of because coming from agency, it's first nature for me, right? So the idea is creating a campaign around yourself. So this is recruitment is basically a campaign, right? So you're running a campaign and you're generating leads and then conversions. So when I look at it from that mindset, it makes sense. Like immediately, just oh God, I should be doing this. And LinkedIn's like it's social media basically, right? So it's a very powerful platform for you to work on. Okay, so this is your campaign, your CV is your EDM, then your LinkedIn post is your always on content. Because if anyone were to pick up your CV and go, oh, okay, what's the next thing they're gonna do? I'm gonna check out your LinkedIn profile and see what you've been doing, what you've been up to. So I think if they put on the lens that it's a campaign and the works of how campaign runs, they'll be able to. I can't promise them that they'll get a job, but I guarantee the leads generated will be a lot better than applying now all the time. It's just not gonna work in these days. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that idea of once again thinking about it as marketing yourself as a campaign or a product or service. I always tell my students to do that, particularly when it comes to things like personal branding. The
Mm,
brand you're being is like whether you're selling like Netflix or Coca-Cola, sell your same the same way. I think it's a combination because I was having a session yesterday with students and they said, okay, should the personal brand just be my story? And I said, there is some elements of that, sharing
mm,
your story, your passions, your backgrounds, but it has to be combined with what the organization and what the hiring manager is looking for.
mm.
So it can't just be, hey, look, I like playing golf and I like watching the Netflix. It's okay, fair enough. Like it's
Yeah.
good to know. But how does that positively impact the organization? Because I think when people are hiring fresh grads, particularly, or
Mm,
even senior ones, they said, okay, I don't want to onboard this person. I don't want to spend time training them. I don't want to do any of that. I just want them to hit the ground running.
mm,
So I think that's where if you can come in, going back to what you're saying, a portfolio or something where it showcases the impact you've had, then
mm.
it relieves that hesitation where people are saying, oh, this person's be kind of a waste of my time if I hire them. Not a waste of the time, but it's going to take me extra
Nice.
hours out of
Yeah.
my day.
Yeah.
So that's to get some advice.
And I've been telling my friends that those who are looking as well, like not every job's gonna be for you. And that's fine. And when you put out your story, when you're sharing more about yourself, I feel that the most important part is being authentic, and it has to be a little bit deeper than like, oh, I like golf. Oh yeah, I love Netflix. I'm like, okay, like I recently shared a couple content on LinkedIn. Yeah, I like Levi's. Everybody, my wife knows it, my wardrobe knows it, even my daughter knows I love Levi's. But talk about why. What about Levi's that got me hooked, right? So why am I so passionate about the brand? And through that, it's also a journey of reflection, of understanding yourself a little bit deeper. And when you're at ground zero, look, you're not working in the office, you got to lose. I would urge everyone that's the best time to do everything and just try everything, but be true to yourself and go on this journey to discover yourself. And you will end up at a spot that you realize that there's actually only about 10 companies that I want to work for because of what they believe in, because of what they do, or because of their leaders, or because of some campaign they have done in the past 3 months, for example, just to name a few. And you would eventually have that list of 10. And that's where you go, okay, hyperdrive, I'm going to start a campaign. And I hate to use some B2B marketing term, but that's ABM. Then start your ABM campaign. So it's account-based. You research who these people are, who are the people of influence, what department you need to get in touch with, what's the best role, spar with ChatGPT, write your own JD, how would it look like, and have conversations with these people. And that's that strategy of what AI companies or tech companies can is no longer, but Amazon had that Amazon Prime or Amazon Now, right? So this is almost like Amazon before, right? So sell me things before I even know I want it. So this is exactly that, right? So there may not be any openings, but be there, showing up meaningfully and create an impact with the people that could potentially give you a job, almost guarantee a slot to an interview when a role arises. They go, oh, I remember I met this person that's amazing. We had no role. Now, I should reach out to this person. It's about that. It's no longer showing up when there's an ad, hey, we're looking for a marketing director. And oh, no,
Mm.
I should apply. No, be there before the role happens. Whether it's the hiring manager, whether it's the person that you're replacing, for example, build that relationship. And just, it's a long relationship, right? It may take a few months. If you're lucky, maybe a couple of weeks, maybe years, but the reward will be amazing because you'll be working for the company that you always wanted to work for in the role that you always wanted to have. So that's, and yeah, it's a combination of tools and being human, I think on both sides to make this work, right?
Daniel, I think that's a great recap just to share what you're saying. You talked about obviously taking an account-based model, account-based marketing approach when it comes to this. So identifying the right stakeholders, researching them. We talked about leveraging AI and tech to identify whether you're a right fit for the role and
Mm.
how to optimize it could be your CV or even your communications
Yeah.
when you're reaching out to these people. And then experiment, I think is the last thing I took away from today's session is just to experiment with different things. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, but it makes the process a little bit more funner along the
Yeah.
way. So, Daniel, I really appreciate you coming on the show and sharing all these insights. I think once again, I've got some insights now for my future classes that I'll take and I'll share with. So I appreciate you coming on the show today.
No, thank you for having me. This is fun.
Awesome. I'm glad to hear that. For everyone who is recruitment space or looking for a job, hopefully helpful for you today.
Yeah.
And you feel free to share with who might find this session interesting as well. Thank you so much. And we'll see you on the next